Early today, Polish President Duda met former United States President Donald Trump. Our special correspondent, Alexander Wejewski, was in New York City and has more. The atmosphere of this visit was very good. It was friendly, as emphasized both by representatives of President Duda's office and Donald Trump's campaign, which is using this visit and talks to change the trend in the American media. You may also be very familiar with the visit from the photos we are publishing on TV Republica. International reactions are also quite warm, especially in Kiev, where the visit has been noted as a hope for a breakthrough in US support for the war and defense effort of Ukrainians. Under Trump, tower alone, almost 200 people gathered yesterday. The atmosphere was very heated. We had a chance to witness these very events. For more about the significance of Polish President Duda's visit and meeting with Donald Trump, editor Holdinska. Security issues and funding of the army were the #1 topic of conversation during Polish President Duda's visit to the United States in New York, where he met former US President Donald Trump. The war beyond our eastern border and overseas, the impact of this situation, this was also touched upon during these talks. What would be the effects, including politically, perhaps especially for us here in Poland? Today, I'm checking. Today, our duty, as well as that of the entire community, is precisely to support Ukraine, for Ukraine to defend itself against Russian aggression. I said that these months ahead will be crucial for sure, and that it is necessary to solicit this support everywhere. Hence a meeting at the Trump Tower in New York's Manhattan, and long talks, mainly about the need to increase military funding in NATO countries. Donald Trump and Andrzej Duda discussed the Polish president's proposal that NATO countries increase defense spending to 3% of GDP. The staff of the former US president, who is running for re-election, added that the conversation touched on the war between Russia and Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East. The officials stressed the friendship between the former president of the United States and the incumbent Polish president. It was the meeting of two friends who recalled that time when they worked together for 4 years, holding presidential offices. It was a good time. President Andrzej Duda, whom he knows personally, may meet him privately before he becomes, or if he becomes, President of the United States. And then he will meet with him, probably if Trump is already officially elected. But for now, it is a social meeting. Polish-US relations, both under the former and current United States governments, are crucial to Poland's security in the face of war across the eastern border. Something that is in Poland's deepest interest, and that both major political camps in the United States should have a similarly positive attitude towards Poland, and this seems to be achieved at the moment. Even in a private meeting, there was talk of cooperation and the need to strengthen the North Atlantic Pact against Russia. We are structurally building an armed force based on a missile shield and air defense based on US systems. And it was through years of cooperation between Presidents Trump and Duda that the details were clarified and the Vistula program was implemented in Poland. The agreement was negotiated. The new migration package adopted by the European Parliament is stirring up a lot of emotion. Back in January, we had these announcements from the Prime Minister. Poland will not accept illegal migrants under any such mechanism. It was on the 10th of April that the European Parliament passed legislation that reforms the European migration and asylum policy. MEPs elected from the Civic Coalition lists voted in favour of the Migrant Pact coming into force from 2026. Recall that in 2017, as head of the European Council at the time, Donald Tusk criticised the migration policy of Law and Justice and accused the then government of breaking out of European solidarity. The Polish government will be determined, actually as one of 2 or 3 in Europe, not to participate in this solidarity, sharing of responsibilities on the refugee issue. This will inevitably involve certain consequences. These are the rules in Europe, he said. A change of mind or a political game before the EU parliamentary elections. Civic platform candidate for Elbląg Mayor, Michał Nisan, when asked about accepting migrants, makes things clear. Migration policy is a state policy. I will remind you that when the war broke out in Ukraine, all Ukrainians who applied to Elbląg, we provided assistance to all of them. And so it will be in this case. If there are people who need help, then, being president, my empathy will not allow me not to help them. Many Poles, however, fear a large wave of illegal migrants. It was a question that was asked to me by a resident of Elbląg with a request that I answer, and I said clearly and explicitly that I do not agree that Poland should accept illegal migrants, that Polish society and Elbląg families should pay for the bad decisions of the German policy of Herzlich Willkommen implemented by Angela Merkel. However, not everyone is bothered by Angela Merkel's open migration policy. Already 8 years ago, we heard similar declarations of readiness from the mouths of civic platform politicians.
Jako kraj jesteśmy przygotowani.
As a country, we are prepared for any number of refugees. The point is that the distribution of refugees in Europe should be fair.
Chodzi o to, żeby...
So, who should Poles believe? Experts warn against deliberate wordplay by politicians. This is rhetoric to serve the next election campaigns. They want to reassure Poles and calm their fears. But I think we will find more truth in the statements of civic platform politicians from the local level who announce the admission of immigrants. We also have such a play on words all the time, because civic platform speaks out against illegal migration. But it should be remembered that these EU procedures, migration legalizes, and therefore an illegal migrant becomes legal. According to a report by the European Policy Research Centre, 81% of Poles oppose the idea of a migration pact. Experts estimate that Poles' attitudes on the separation of migrants and optional solidarity, as it is now called, are influenced by, among other things, images from France and Germany. It should also be remembered that the migration pact stipulates penalties, €20,000 for each migrant not accepted. Natalia Rzeczniczak, Telewizja Republika. The Polish Post Office is preparing large-scale layoffs, reports Rzeczpospolita, which warns it will be shock therapy. In addition to the downsizing of up to 10,000 employees within a year already announced, there are to be group layoffs, the scale of which is not yet known. Subsequent days bring more news of downsizing or the winding up of Polish or foreign companies. Even global giants are laying off employees. For example, 800 people at Nokia.
Za każdą z tych firm
Behind each of these companies, behind each of these locations that we can see on the map, behind each of these situations, after all, there are concrete dramas of Polish families. The situation of families that may be left without a livelihood, without a source of income, without the prospect of a stable life for some time. Reductions in employment are, in fact, all over the country, as these maps show. Data from labour offices show that the scope of layoffs is twice as large this year as it was a year ago. We have a very sensitive few weeks ahead of us. If the government does not prepare, and consequently the parliamentary base does not adopt individual shields for Polish industry, for the Polish economy, but most importantly for Polish citizens, what we remember from the past will return. Company bankruptcies will return. Much higher unemployment will return, unfortunately. During the previous governments of Donald Tusk, unemployment reached more than 14%. In order for these times not to return, you also need a climate of great investment. And with this, there is a problem. An example is the central transportation port. I know that if there is a living real economy developed and there are investments in the real economy, among other things, in infrastructure implemented, this is the strongest and healthiest for the development of a country's economy. And this climate is lacking. What is missing above all is the willingness of the new government to make investments. We bring this project a bit from the clouds to the ground. We are standing firmly on the ground. Such words are not surprising, since they are uttered by a person who is a staunch opponent of the mega airport. Now the same person is the government's plenipotentiary for the central transportation port and hides behind audits. It is worth noting that external entities, no audits at the Central Communication Port Company, have been conducted. What has happened so far, and what information Mr. Lasik's attorney has received, is a check of documentation and invoices, contracts entered into and commitments made by the company employees. These materials he actually received. The public, on the other hand, obviously does not know these findings. The Central Transportation Port is not only a high-speed railroad and an airport from which we will reach every corner of the world, it is also a transportation hub.
Najdroższe transportowane są drogą lotniczą.
The most expensive goods are transported by air, among others pharmaceuticals, electronics, cosmetics, mail, etc. Only 17% of these goods are delivered directly to Poland and cloned in Poland. Even a pensioner in Ustryki Dolne will benefit from the fact that this port will be built. There will be air connectivity better. There will be more trade, more investment. An obstacle to investment, however, is the Polish government's approach. The current passive approach of the government demonstrates a lack of desire for Poland's economic development. I can't imagine a situation in which we'll be subserviently implementing recommendations to delay or extinguish this
Tych
project.
zalet jest mnóstwo, mówią o tym.
These advantages are plentiful, experts say. You just have to be willing to listen to them and stop hiding behind this kind of non-Dashism. It is a Polish raison d'etre to see this project through. Any delay, or worse, extinguishing of the Central Transport project could further affect mass layoffs in our country and slow down the entire economy. Adrian Borecki, TV Republika.